All right, let's go ahead and get started. So it's been a fun last couple of weeks, a lot of recent chop. Looking at 24-hour liquidations, we can see it's about 150 million. So again, not too high, not too low. Just a lot of people have been getting chopped up on both the longs and the shorts. One of the big news events that happened over this past week was the recent arrest of Pavel Durov, the Telegram founder. So this made waves around Twitter. There's a lot of people announcing, various tweets, such as the Free Pavel hashtag from Elon Musk. You also had the Ton blockchain change their PFP to the Resistance Dog, and a lot of people were showing their support. So basically what happened was whenever Pavel went to France, he was arrested and they basically kept him in police custody for 4 days. And one of the charges was because he was quote unquote complicit in allowing terrorism and other things on Telegram and not giving over the data. And for anyone who knows Pavel, he's very big into free speech. And that's why he's so big in the space and why Telegram has become so popular, because it's encrypted, decentralized, and he's true to that vision. And he doesn't give over that data. There's been a lot of governments, even the United States government has tried to create a backdoor in a Telegram, and he refused. So now the French government is saying, hey, you're withdrawing, you're not letting us access his data, and now it's used for these criminal activities, and basically they were trying to hold him under that. Well, long story short, Pavel ended up being released of police custody, but he is still put on a 5 million euro bail, and he still has to go to court, assuming for the next few months, to basically address all these different charges that the French government has basically brung upon him, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. But nonetheless, this has been a big case, and again, I'm curious to see how long he ends up going through court. No doubt it's going to be a very long process, but the good thing is he's now out of police custody. He has a good lawyer, and basically he's trying to do what he can, but we know that we saw with Andrew Tate, they can drag this on as long as they need to. So hopefully Pavel gets out as soon as possible and basically leave France. But right now he is currently banned from leaving France. So he's just there basically in limbo as the whole court system goes through the whole process. So very interested to see what happens here. But the Ton coin ended up doing very well whenever he did get released from police custody, as well as a few other coins. But right now they've been a little choppy, so interested to see what happens with that in the Telegram blockchain. But very cool to see at least he's out of police custody, so going to keep an eye on this. Next is Forbes actually partnered with the OKX wallet to launch exclusive NFT community. So a lot of people have been getting into crypto, even people such as Forbes. So it says, quote, offers its holders a gateway to pioneering membership club, gathering the next generation of innovators, creators, and thought leaders in the Web3 space. So everyone's trying to get a piece. I know NFTs have been very lackluster the past few months, but everyone's trying to basically create their own NFT and create hype around that. So Forbes, out of all people, ended up having some type of partnership with OKX Wallet to launch their NFTs. So interested to see what happens with this. But yeah, there's a lot of people getting in now. So curious to see if NFTs end up taking off over the next few months. Another one is Polygon. So Polygon actually is having their POL upgrade on September 4th. So this is very big. A lot of people have been looking forward to this. Matic is one of those coins that hasn't been doing too well, but because of this POL upgrade, it did gain some hype. So you can even see here around, call it August 20th, there started to be some hype. People were front running this news. And up to August 24th, it pumped nearly 35%, all the way up to 57 cents. So since then, basically retraced all this pump as people are selling the news ahead of schedule. And, we still have 2 days left till this POL upgrade. But long story short, it's going to change its ticker symbol to POL from Matic. And there's a lot of upgrades happening. So basically, I think Matic is probably going to gain some more hype over the next few months. But again, it's one of those dino coins that, it's going to be hard. Anytime there's a rebrand, though, there is some excitement. So I'm going to be watching this very closely to see if Matic ends up gaining that hype again over these next few months. And then next, let's talk about the macroeconomic news. So NVIDIA had their earnings a few days ago, and it was interesting whenever I saw this because they ended up beating their earnings and exceeding expectations, but the stock still declined. So you can see here that it had a slight pump and then it had a large retracement, so down to $115. So it fell over 8% after reporting stronger than expected earnings. And it's kind of really gives you a good picture of where Nvidia is at right now because they had such a strong performance this year, nearly 3x. And basically, people weren't looking for them just to beat their earnings, they were looking for them to shatter them. So now you have things where people are expecting them to beat earnings, but now they're looking for that, really basically out of their phenomenal results. And it didn't happen. They just beat it. And now you saw it retracement, and basically Nvidia is kind of finding its true value now after climbing that 3x. And now it's just kind of waiting to see if, basically what updates they have down the line and what their forecasted earnings are and what they're expecting. So I think that's what people are really looking for. So now it's just kind of, okay, it's good that they're beating earnings, but it's not enough now. So it's kind of funny to see that in the market right now versus what used to happen when a company would beat earnings is, of course, they would go up 10, 15, 20%. But that's not the case anymore. So it kind of tells you, again, where we're at with the market, how overvalued NVIDIA has become, and kind of what's going to happen in their next earnings report, and if there's any big, AI developments with them to really surprise investors. And, we see that huge pump afterwards. So watching that very closely. But yeah, this was interesting. And we did see coins like Fetch and Render that were having a nice pump ahead of the NVIDIA earnings. So similar to Matic, people were front running that. So Fetch went from 90 cents all the way up to, 140. So had nearly a 50% run there. And since then, it's had a small retracement, but it has been holding up fairly well. So watching Fetch here and Render for the AI coins. And the next, we had short-term rate futures continue to price in a 25 basis point Fed rate cut in September, 100 basis points total by the year end. So nothing has changed. Remember when I posted this chart here during my last live stream, you have all these banks. This was in the beginning of August. And again, everyone is expecting that 25 basis point rate cut. And then eventually total rate cuts in 2024, you have anywhere from 50 all the way to 125. So in my opinion, a 25 basis rate cut in September will be very, very healthy because it is needed. But anything more than that, then that's really going to flag that something is wrong, and they're basically overcorrecting at that point. Because now here you can see that the personal savings rate is at an all-time low, but credit card debt is at a record high. So an interest rate cut is strongly needed. Basically, investors are tapped out, and they need some type of relief, whether that's a stimulus package, interest rate cuts, etc. So very interested to see what happens here. Remember, whenever we do have a rate cut, historically, Bitcoin dominance does end up topping out within a month or two after, and we see altcoins rally. So that's why you have that, for us, a lot of people are expecting that Q4 rally, and it's going to coincide with those rate cuts. So a lot of things are lining up over these next few months. Now looking over the overall market, so the S&P 500 today is Labor Day, so there's no trading today. But you can see that it is on the cusp of breaking all-time highs near that 5670 level. So watching this very closely, but looking at the RSI, it is still forming that bearish divergence here. So lower highs, while the S&P is looking to make higher highs. So expecting some type of short-term reversal here on the weekly. Next big support level I'm looking at is 5270, followed by 5140. You can see right here, gold is forming an ascending wedge on the weekly. And right here, we have a pennant on the RSI. So you can see it's bounced off support and then rejected off resistance here. So the gold is very close to breaking out either one way or the other based off this pattern of the ascending wedge, assuming it's going to break to the downside. Now, this is going to give us at least a couple more months before it does break down, which would actually coincide around the end of September, which does coincide again with those interest rate cuts mid-September. And then the after effects, we can see the positivity of that about a month afterwards. So watching this very closely, it would coincide with everyone being more risk on assets if the Fed does decide, one, to cut rates, and then two, to provide stimulus. So watching that very closely for gold, but it has been doing very well near that all-time high of 25.30. But some big support I'm looking for if it does break down here is at 2420 level and then 2290 on the weekly. So watching that very closely. And then looking at oil futures. So oil futures does have a pennant of sorts forming as well. So you can see whatever way it breaks, it's going to be pretty violent. The RSI right now forming slight double bottom here on the weekly. So again, looking for it to break higher here, potentially rise up to this 80 level, which again isn't the best, but as long as it stays within this pennant and eventually breaks down, that will be good. So watching oil futures as well very closely. Now let's go ahead and look at the Bitcoin ETF flows. So flows haven't been doing too well for Bitcoin or Ethereum. So we can see the past 4 days we've had negative outflows, and they haven't been small. So 127 million, 105 million, 71, and then 175. So these have been the most outflows we've had in a long time for Bitcoin, and going to see what happens here today. But not looking good even for Ethereum outflows. Ethereum's been very lackluster since its release. So it had initial hype those first couple days, but since then there hasn't really been a lot. So again, Ethereum's not looking good, and I think that just kind of also coincides here with the months of August and September. So if you remember last video, we talked about August and September are historically bearish months. So got to keep that in mind. September is another bearish. September is actually the worst month for Bitcoin monthly returns, just based off of past history. So that's why a lot of people right now are either A, sitting September out, or B, looking to buy in September, because there are going to be a lot of generational buy opportunities this month. And I mean, you can see the average return is negative 4.4% for the month of September, and then the median return is negative 4.35%. So negative returns on average here. So I would start looking at some good buying opportunities. Again, we could have a last flush, but still expecting people to front run the September rate cuts, and that's going to be September 17th to 18th for the FOMC meeting. So expecting some good deals for that. But yeah, right now we've just been having a lot of chop, so expecting some good buying opportunities soon for that. And then also with those ETF outflows, keep in mind, guys, anytime we have a huge ETF outflow, such as we had in May of negative 600 million, or towards the middle of March, negative 400 million, that's when we do have a strong reversal to the upside. So keep that in mind for Bitcoin ETF. Whenever you see a large outflow, expect us to have a reversal soon after that. Now, looking at the Bitcoin hash rate is continuing to increase, which is great to see. Miners are still confident, still contributing their resources to prevent a 51% attack. So good to see there. The hash rate hasn't really declined that much. So that's what you want to see, especially if we have a lot of chop. Now, looking at the overall market. So again, more chop here. Bitcoin's been hovering with that 58.2K level. This is a big area of contention that I've been talking about. Looking at the 24-hour chart. So top 24-hour gainer is Uniswap, followed by Helium, which has been a good deep-in coin, followed by a few others, Flow, Mantra, Algorand, etc. So really nothing standing out for today. Again, you can see Nero here, the largest gainers, up 79%. So Nero has been doing very well. So again, some meme coins are still popping. So that's something great to see. There is still retail interest in that. Now looking at the halving tracker. So keep in mind here that historically, between 100 to 150 days after the halving, we see a huge rise. So the rally starts. So really, after about 150 days, that's when all of these three periods, 2016, 2020, and 2012, start rising. So right now, again, there's a lot of chop. We are on day 135, so about 15 more days, which, funny enough, does coincide with mid-September, the rate cuts. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I think we'll start to see Bitcoin rise, especially as we get closer to that rate cut date, and then really start ramping up in Q4. So watching this very closely. Again, everyone's expecting a bullish Q4. It may do something different. It may start earlier, it may start later. But nonetheless, I am starting to expect some positive price action here within the next few weeks. And then also, this is a chart I was looking at, and there's a lot of comparisons to last cycles. So this chart here was by CryptoAmst, and it is a logarithmic chart, which basically equals everything out. So basically the run from 2014 to 2017, and then you have from 2018 down to 2021, and then 2022 down to the current price. And basically what this shows is there is a usual pattern that happens during runs. So you can see here that in 2014, we did have basically a big drawdown followed by consolidation under support. It breaks back above resistance. And then you can see here that eventually it does continue higher in an uptrend, and it breaks that previous all-time high that happened in 2014. And then we have basically an expansion period from there. So same thing in 2018. We had a huge rejection, started the bear market, consolidated under resistance, broke above it, retested as support, and then continued higher. And then you can see right here now in 2021, topped out, rejected, double top there, basically consolidated under resistance, and now we are continuing higher. So this is any indication, assuming that we stay above that 58.2K level, then expecting higher from here. Now, again, everyone is expecting lower around that 44K level where BlackRock bought most of their Bitcoin. So obviously we could still have a dip below there. We have been consolidating unusually long versus the other periods. But nonetheless, as long as we stay above 58.2K, that would be a very strong indication that we continue higher. Next, looking at the TVL across all chains. So TVL has been very stagnant. So there's been a lot of outflows, a lot of net outflows. You can see that, again, most of the chains haven't been doing that well. Tron obviously saw some hype because of Sun.pump. And then Solana still, showing some appreciation because of memes, etc. And then the Binance Smart Chain with CZ getting out of prison soon. That's something I'm going to talk about with the chart as well. And then again, a few others. Even the base chain is gaining some traction again, so watching that very closely. But Ton has actually been falling below here at rank number 21. So hopefully we can see the Ton blockchain start to gain some traction again, especially as Pavel gets closer to the end of his court proceedings. So watching that very closely. And then the Fear and Greed Index. So right now it's at 26. So remember, 26 was the level we were at before the huge run in December of 2022 from 16K. So again, this fear and greed levels can stay low for a while. So it doesn't mean we have to bounce right now, but just a little sentiment check where people are at. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the market. In my opinion, sentiment is potentially the lowest it's been since the FTX collapse. So Twitter is basically a ghost town. People are posting random memes here and there, and there's not a lot going on. So in my opinion, I think that we're getting very close. Again, I mentioned generational buy opportunities for September, so I'll definitely keep that in mind. But yeah, this is exactly what you want to see before a big pump starts, is sentiment near all-time lows and consolidating near these levels. So watching very closely, but expecting some type of relief rally over the next few weeks. Now let's go and look at the charts. So we can see Bitcoin dominance is still hovering around that 57% level. So I'm waiting for this ascending wedge to break to the downside, which would start alt season in my opinion. Now, a few people such as Benjamin Cohen, he is thinking we're going to get around the 60% level, which is still possible. But I'm watching this 57.8% because it was big resistance, actually big support near June 2019 and September of 2020. So expecting it to act as resistance here, but still watching this. And then we also have the ETH BTC chart, which this is another thing that was interesting. So it actually broke below its weekly support. So we had major resistance here in 2021, and now it did act as support initially, but it has broken below it. So not good at all. The one silver lining is this RSI trend line here. It did bounce off that as support. So potentially we could be looking at some type of bullish divergence on ETH BTC, and then it breaks to the upside and we see alts follow. So still, nonetheless, this trend line I'm watching, we've had for the past 2 years since September of 2022. Once this trend line breaks, that'll be huge for ETH BTC. That's when we'll really start to see things fire off. And you can see that it does coincide with basically a Q4 rally as well. So you can see probably towards the mid-October, we start to see this break. So again, some more chop solidation for the next month or so until then. But nonetheless, if ETH can break back above this resistance, I'll be very bullish. It'll confirm this bullish divergence and then continue higher from there. So watching ETH BTC, but again, it hasn't been performing the best over these past few months. And then looking at USDT dominance. So dominance did break below our support and then it broke back above. So USDT dominance right now has not been good. A lot of people have been getting out of Bitcoin and altcoins into stables. So what I'm watching now is this RSI resistance line. So basically this RSI level around 65 has acted as resistance since November of 2022. So watching once we get to that for a big rejection on dominance. But until then, potentially, we may still see it decline and retest this support level. But USDT dominance has kind of been having a mind of its own over these past few weeks. So not holding my breath on that one. Mainly watching this RSI level here. And then total 3, this was the fractal we've been talking about. It's actually played out to a T. So I showed this to you guys a couple months back, and it's been playing out perfectly. We can see here that once it broke below the support level, you can see that it actually nearly reached this resistance that we've been talking about. So these arrows I drew a few weeks ago, and it did play out. So you can see at August 19th, we did rise just to about the $630 billion mark on total 3, and then we rejected down the week after. So now we're starting a new week. Again, we could still rise, but this trend line has been strong. If this plays out just like the fractal that we had back in 2021, then I would be expecting 3 to 4 months of downtrend before we actually start the real bull run in 2025. So that's not what people want to hear. Obviously, we want Q4 to be extremely bullish, but just with the uncertainty around the elections and a couple other things going on, we could still see chop and downside. So this is still a factor that I'm keeping in mind, a scenario that I'm watching because it has played out so good. Remember, if we do break this trend line on total 3, that'll be extremely bullish, and I believe that's when we'll start alt season. So we have a lot of trend lines we're watching for alt season. We have the Bitcoin dominance breaking down, ETH BTC breaking its trend line, or total 3 breaking this trend line. So a lot of factors I'm watching for which one will start alt season there. Next, let's talk about Bitcoin's chart. So Bitcoin has been hovering around this 58.2K level. This has been a big area of contention. Now you can see here, it also is hovering below the 200 EMA on the daily. So this has also been acting as resistance since August 28th. So if we can break and close above that, that'll be very good. And then we'll have that big resistance at 61.5K. So watching these levels very closely, what I would say here is basically wait until we have some type of movement here, some type of confirmation. Otherwise, I'll be watching for a retest of this 54K level, which would coincide with this trend line as well. So expect to see a lot of support here, a lot of limit orders down here around 54K. A lot of people are going to be waiting for 50 to 52K, so I don't think we'll tap that. I think it'll get front run here. But again, the RSI is curving to the upside, which is good for us. We just need to break back above this 200 EMA to then finally start to target that 61.5K level. And then looking at Ethereum. So Ethereum has been doing the same thing. So it's really hovering around this 2,500 level, which has been strong support. The RSI is curving to the upside as well, looking to break that signal line. But again, with Ethereum, I just wait for some type of confirmation here. So people are waiting for Ethereum to have its big run, but it hasn't really been doing much. So in my opinion, I would just wait to see what happens with Ethereum if we can close back above. But this 2,500 level isn't a bad area to start DCAing. I'd also look at 2,330. It's the last big support that it had August 7th, and then where it wicked down here around 2,170. So some good DCA levels here for Ethereum if we do reject lower. And then BNB. So I talked about CZ's release from prison and levels I'd be watching. So BNB had a lot of hype whenever he was transferred to a halfway house. And basically a halfway house is to get people acclimated to the real world about a month to prior to their release. So that created a lot of hype. We saw BNB actually rise from 520 all the way to a high of 722. And even here, we can see here when that halfway house, when he was transferred, we saw it run from 500 all the way up to 600. So there's a lot of hype there. We saw even the BNB chain account post about their 4.meme, which is basically their pump.fun of BNB. And we saw a lot of meme coins on BNB rise as well. So looking at the chart here, big support is going to be near this $500 level, which also does coincide with 470, the 50 EMA on the weekly. But I would say if you're looking at DCA into BNB, look at 500. That is a good level in my opinion. And then where it wicked down around 400, this would be a great level to DCA as well. So we are below this signal line on the weekly. So once we break above that, I believe we'll see BNB take off and break its all-time highs of 720. So again, I'm keeping an eye on this September 29th date. That is when CZ is going to be released. I believe this will get front run massively around mid-September, especially as that coincides with the rate cuts. So watching that very closely. Also, I'm watching here the RSI levels. So this is something here when the RSI gets overbought, BNB tops out. When the RSI gets oversold on the daily, BNB bottoms out. So watch this very closely. It also coincides with the stock RSI. And then here you can see the MACD actually confirms that trend change when it crosses over. So these are 3 indicators I would watch for BNB, mainly the RSI and the stock RSI, because these do confirm trend changes very well on BNB. When the stock RSI ends up crossing to the downside and RSI is topped out, that's when you see a trend change. So watch these indicators very closely. I noticed they're pretty accurate for BNB. And also looking at BNB compared to Bitcoin. So this is another chart I like to watch because here you can see there has been big support near this 0085 level. So in my opinion, I believe if this reaches this level again, we'll see massive buying around here because it has been major support even since May of 2024. So watching this level very closely. It also coincides with the 200 EMA on the weekly. So another indicator to keep in mind. But looking at Solana, so Solana hasn't been doing too bad. It's been bouncing off this big support of 127 all the way since April of this year. So 127 has been major support on the daily. So if you're looking at DCA, if Solana gets here again, I would watch this level as well as this 118 level. This has been great support as well. It's wicked below and bounced consistently. The RSI is curving to the upside for Solana. So at the very least, what I would expect is a retest of this 140 level, which is the 200 EMA on the daily. And then from there, I would look at big resistance near this 150 level, which coincides with the 50 and 100 EMA. So again, the RSI is curving to the upside, which is great to see. So a lot of coins are, showing a relief bounce at the very least, potentially a higher bounce all the way up to this 164 level if we can get, break above these moving averages. And then looking at TON. So TON, besides that big hype we had whenever Pavel was released from police custody, since then, it hasn't been doing as well. Now, it did find good support here at 510. I would say major support is going to be around this 480 mark. So you can see here that it has wicked around 480 on August 5th. We also had May 1st, April 3rd, and March 28th. So this 480 level is major support. So if you're looking at DCA into TON, I would look at this level as well as near this 510 level. It did bounce on August 27th and it has held so far. So watching this level very closely. Hopefully we'll see some good performance from TON over the next few weeks. And then AVAX. So I know Hustlepedia was talking about AVAX recently. So AVAX coincides with GameFi, in my opinion, and when GameFi pumps, we'll see AVAX pumps and vice versa. So it has still been bouncing off this $20 level. So this is an area I would look to DCA. And then you can see 1950. So it does coincide with that level as well. RSI is bouncing to the upside. So still, we do have some resistance at 2350. If AVAX can break above that, it still needs to break above all 3 of its moving averages, the 50, 100, and 200 EMAs on the daily. But I would still be watching for this 2350 level for it to close above, show some strength, and then continue higher from there. So hopefully AVAX continues to outperform. It hasn't been doing that well recently, but we did have that nice run back at the end of August. So hopefully we can return to these levels. So then next thing we're going to look at is some upcoming events. So September is a packed month. We have the presidential debate on September 10th. This is going to be good to see. Hopefully they mention crypto. Not expecting them to because they didn't mention it in the last debate, but nonetheless, an event I'm going to be watching closely. Then also we have the Fed. So the Fed meeting is going to be September 17th to the 18th. This is when they're going to potentially announce their interest rate cuts. I'm strongly expecting that. And so expect people to front run this because this will be some bullish news if they announce it. Hopefully it's just a 25 basis point because like I said, if they announce anything higher, it could be cause for concern and basically an overcorrection at that point. So watching that closely. We also have token 2049 in Singapore. So hopefully you guys are going to this. I'll be going to this. and it's going to be a great event. There's going to be a lot of side events, so definitely looking forward to that. I'll also be going to the actual Token 2449 event, so looking forward to seeing you guys there, as well as here. So Luke posted recently the DGen meetup. This is going to be September 20th at 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So this is going to be an insane event. I went to his last event in Dubai, and that was crazy. That was actually for between Ton, Jupiter, and Capital Club. So now he's adding Core to the mix. So it's going to be a great event here. Luke's planning for this to be the actual biggest event in Singapore. So guys, if you haven't seen, he actually posted the link in the Discord if you haven't seen it in Gym Hunters. But yeah, this is going to be a great event. Highly recommend everyone going. I'm going to see y'all there. So it's going to be great, guys. And then last but not least, we talked about CZ being released from prison. So this is going to be September 29th. So like I said, September is going to be a packed month. There's going to be a lot going on. So definitely watch again, September 29th. A lot of people are going to front run this. So expect the BNB ecosystem to gain some hype ahead of that, as well as meme coins such as Four, Simon the Cat, and then a few others. So a lot of hype with the BNB chain. So make sure you're trying to take advantage of that opportunity. But with that, that's all I had for today. If y'all guys have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We still have about 27 minutes, and I'll be happy to answer those. So let's see. What's going on, Goose? NavC said, can you check MAD? Thank you. Yeah, we'll go ahead and check the MAD chart. Go ahead. All right, so MAD is one of those coins that has been compared to Ponky, Brett, and a few others. So the team has a lot of updates, and we can see here MAGA actually went higher, funny enough. So MAD right now, again, it had a nice run earlier. Since then, it hasn't been doing the best. You can see that we did draw support near this 1.4 level. It broke below that on the daily, and that should have been the cue to get out. And then since then, it's basically been hovering around this 1 level. So what I'll be looking at for MAD is you do have this support here around 7.4. This would be the next level I would look to DCA at. And then below that, 3.7. But just looking at the daily, I mean, it's not looking the best. It's kind of in the middle of no man's land right now. I would say wait at this point for either it to reach 7.4 or for it to close back above this 1.4 level. But again, with meme coins, they haven't been doing great. So most memes have been down 30 to 50% or more across the board. So especially on Solana, since it hasn't really been gaining that much hype on the chain. So I would say just keep that in mind when you're trading these meme coins, is there are a lot. They're just bleeding right now. Expecting them to somewhat pick up. But again, altcoins could have their run soon with fundamental plays leading the way, especially because they have been underperforming the past 5 months. So it wouldn't surprise me to see those basically take hold versus memes. But obviously, you're still going to have top memes outperforming and gaining traction. So I would say just, yeah, wait for support at 7.4 or for it to break back and hold above resistance at 1.5. Let's see. Roberto says, can you check the brain rot chart? Yeah, we'll go ahead and check that. So brain rot, 1.8 mil market cap. Let's see. So this chart doesn't look too bad at all. We can see that, let's see, broke above resistance nicely and looking to still curve up higher. So let me pull up the RSI. What I would say for this one is, yeah, the daily chart still looks good. Right now, if you're in it, I would be targeting 0.025 as a potential place to sell. There has been a lot of resistance here. If you're looking to buy, potentially wait for a retest at about 1.4, and then below that at the 0.7 mark. So yeah, doesn't look too bad. Looking at the 4-hour here, the 4 hour is curving to the upside as well. So the 4-hour isn't anywhere near being overbought. So yeah, I would say there's still some good potential here with brain rot. I'd have to see what updates they have, what the catalyst is for continuing higher. But yeah, in my opinion, this chart looks good. Still has some room to run. It says, thoughts on Land Wolf on Sol? Do you think Ton could potentially crash if Durov gets convicted? So yeah, let's go ahead and check Wolf. So Wolf has been one of those coins that did show a lot of promise. Since then, you can see it hasn't been doing as good. It did break below this 2.7 level. We saw it try to bounce, but it could not hold above, along with a lot of soul memes. Hasn't been doing well. So I would say, yeah, with Landwolf, it's, I mean, we did have this last line of support here around, call it 1.3, and is basically hovering around that. I will say this: the silver lining with Wolf is it is oversold on the daily RSI. So, I mean, this is, probably the only silver lining here, that we could basically have a trend change here very soon. So, I would say with that, we still have to break back above this major resistance. So, yeah, if you're looking to buy Wolf here, I'd probably target this 0027 level to take some profits. And then if we can break above and close above, say 004, then I'll be very bullish. So again, silver lining here is the RSI is oversold. Have to see what the team is doing, if they have some big updates. But yeah, Wolf is basically tapped out here. If we don't bounce here, then in my opinion, it's done. So it's kind of now or never for Wolf. And then as far as Ton, if it could crash, if Durov gets convicted. So there's a few things with that. Is if Durov does end up getting convicted, then, you could see him become a martyr of sorts, and basically Ton could end up pumping. And, we could see, people basically fighting back against the government and using Ton as an avenue for that. So it technically could happen. Obviously, there'd be a lot of FUD if he initially gets convicted. And, I mean, we may see Ton break below 480. At that point, you'd be looking at probably this I'd probably call it $4. I'd look to buy near $4. If he gets convicted, then we'd potentially see a wick down to 4. But yeah, I would say probably see initially a wick down, and then more people supporting him and really start to bridge over to the Ton blockchain after that. So, and obviously if he gets released, if they drop all charges, obviously we'll see Ton pump much higher from there. So yeah, I would say any negative news that happens regarding Pavel, I would probably look to buy that FUD and have some limit orders placed near $4. All right, Maxi says, historically after rate cuts, stocks drop in midterm. We saw 2022. If stocks drop, crypto drops harder. You think they could play out similar scenario? Everyone expects a bull market in 2025 in crypto, but normally the opposite happens of what everyone thinks. Yeah, Maxi. So something to keep in mind as well is 2024 is an election year. So this year is election versus 2022 when everything dropped. So yes, I do think that initially we will see a drop when rate cuts happen, whether it be a sell the news event as people are front running it, or just the after effects and basically eventually the pump that happens afterwards. I would say, like I said, Bitcoin dominance usually tops a month or two afterwards. So that could line up with a mid-October pump to November. But again, it's around election time. So who knows what's going to happen? The government could announce a stimulus in addition to that, maybe cause some artificial pumps in the market. But yeah, I would say potentially a sell the news around rate cuts. And then after that, maybe mid-October, a pump afterwards. So yeah, I believe we could see similar scenario. For the most part, stocks have been inversely correlated with crypto. So we see stocks rise and crypto drop. So potentially we could see that inverse correlation where if stocks drop, crypto pumps, right? Especially since Q4 historically been bullish for crypto. So I think we could start seeing crypto outperform stocks since they've been doing so well versus crypto. So that'd be my opinion. Potentially a short-term drop, but I think we'll see, mid-October, a nice little pump. Ghostgo says, I think another measure of sentiment is how active people are inside the Gem Hunters community. Yeah, so that's another thing. So the biggest thing with sentiment is activity in socials. So like Discord, Twitter, anything like that. If you see inactivity, then that's one sentiment check that you can have that, hey, no one's active. Basically, everyone is sidelined or they're wrecked. And that's exactly what you want to see before a pump. So, in my opinion, I would look at one, activity on Discord is another good sentiment check. Activity on Twitter, Telegram, basically any groups that you guys are in. If there's a lot of inactivity, that's usually what happens before we start pumping higher. Because again, everyone is capitulated and no one is invested in the market. And that's what market makers want to see. They're all about liquidity, extracting as much liquidity as possible. And then they'll basically, they take liquidity from the downside and then they reverse it back to the upside. So yeah, great point there about the activity on Discord. And, potentially with September being a bearish month, again, a lot of generational buy opportunities this month. Jordy says, alts keep dumping. What factors do you look at that trigger you to rotate more to alts, mid and small caps? Currently, I'm stacking Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol, but I do not have a good plan for when I'll rotate to more risk on alts. Which macro data do you look at? Maybe when Bitcoin dominance loses support, or ETH BTC? So yeah, there's various ones to look at. Obviously, like I said, Bitcoin dominance, ETH BTC. A few different things is besides the fear and greed index and a couple other of those factors, I also look at one, USDT dominance, but also I just look at the majors. So for example, I'll look at the TVL. So we mentioned DeFi Llama, right? So look at total value locked and where the attention is going, because like Luke says, where attention goes, money flows. So if you're going to have a lot of attention flowing to the Tron blockchain, well, obviously you're going to have a lot of money flowing over there and those memes are going to pump. So we saw hype with that. We saw the temporary hype with the Binance Smart Chain ahead of the CZ release. We saw hype around the Ton blockchain, right? So that's what I look at. I look at TVL, and then I also look at, where the hype is at. So on Twitter, is there any hype? Again, with Solana, we had pump.fun. Tron, we had sun.pump. Binance, we had 4.meme. And then Ethereum, eventually we're going to have some hype around that again. So yeah, in my opinion, I just look at what is hyped around that time. I look at the TVL. I look at the narratives. So a big play with narratives is we saw earlier in the year with AI. So with NVIDIA pumping, we saw AI coins pump. With, for example, we saw DPIN as well. So Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network. We saw, GameFi have a small little pump in the beginning of the year. And then memes basically took over from there for the last 4 to 5 months. So that was the big narrative. So in my opinion, when deciding when to rotate back to alts, obviously you can chart them. So whenever alts are at big support, so I mentioned BNB, whenever it reaches oversold on the RSI on the daily, we see it pump. And that coincides with stochastic RSI. So that's what you can look at. So you can look at oversold indicators on the higher time frames, like the daily, weekly. Also look at, daily, weekly support levels. Because whenever we have these altcoins reaching these major support levels, such as Solana at 127, we saw it bounce. So that's another thing where you can see, some rotations over to altcoins. So really, I would just look at the chart. And then at that point, just look at the overall narratives. And if there's any catalyst, because there's really no catalyst for narratives, then really you're not going to see much pumps in altcoins. And that's when you're going to see more attention flow over to meme coins. So yeah, in my opinion, just look at TVL. Look at the pairings to Bitcoin. So for example, like Sol BTC, Ton BTC, Tron BTC, basically any pairing against Bitcoin, that can also help you decide if those pairings are at major support on the daily or weekly charts. You can expect, those coins to start pumping and then alts to pump with those. So that's just another factor when you can see those rotations. So see, Luke's here. He says, LFG, good to see you here, man. Always good to have the GOAT in the building. Let's see, you have Cheryl. So link for DGen Meetup. Yep, make sure, guys, you're attending the DGen Meetup. If you aren't, it's going to be an awesome event. I'm going to be there. It's going to be the best event in Singapore. .com Tom says, please look at the super chart and DCA points. All right, let's go ahead and look at super. I know Hustlepedia talked about that earlier in his last stream. Let's see. Right. Let me double check this is the right chart. All right. All right, good. So yeah. So GameFi, in my opinion, still eventually it's going to have a run. It's been lagging a lot versus other narratives. I do think, though, that we will start to see a rotation, especially as altcoins start pumping in Q4. So right now on the daily chart, you can see we do have this resistance line here, this low trend line resistance, but it did break back above this resistance here of 50 cents. So that is a good sign. We're going to go ahead and pull up RSI as well. Yeah, this looks good. So super looks good right now. We did see it has RSI is curving to the upside. What I would be looking at is for it to break this resistance here at about, call it 75 cents. So if it can break and close above 75 cents on the daily, it's going to be very bullish in my opinion. That also coincides with this major resistance level here around 77. So there's two big resistance points that we need to break. But yeah, I would say a close above 80 cents actually probably going to be bullish because one, we're going to break above this trend line, and then two, we're going to break above this resistance level. So yeah, in my opinion, super is bullish. But again, I would not buy here. I would wait either for a retest of this 50-cent level, or at the very, very least, a retest of this 65 level on the daily. So yeah, so I'd at least wait for that because again, you do have this strong trend line here around 75 cents, expecting it to get rejected here at least a few more times before breaking out eventually, especially as we, getting towards those September rate cuts, the 17th and 18th. So yeah, now I'd say super looks good though. Super looks good. I know Hustlepedia said they have a lot of updates coming down the line, and he's very locked into that community. So I would definitely listen to what he's saying. Kent says, what's your favorite token on BNB? So there's a few ones that have been gaining hype. So I mentioned four. Four was a meme coin that was gaining a lot of hype. You can even see here I drew a little double bottom pattern. But right now, I would say four is one of the main ones. And right now, it's not at bad support around 004, funny enough. And then below that, it's 0032 and then 0021. But you can see here that the RSI is curving to the upside as well on the daily. So may not be a bad spot to start DCAing on four, again, especially ahead of CZ's release in 3.5 weeks. So this is one. And then there was a lot of hype as well around Simon. So I think it was Simon's cat, if I can. Yeah, I think this is the one. So I know the BNB account, I think BNB Chain tweeted about Simon Cat as well. So I would say this isn't a bad one. I know a lot of big accounts have been talking about this. Probably wait for a retest of the 1.9 level here on the daily. Yeah, because again, this one already had a lot of hype, but still expecting this one to perform well in addition to four. So I think we'll see those memes perform well. And then I still need to look at the other meme coins, but those are the main ones in my opinion on the BNB chain. There may be some more, but yeah, just with, again, you want to look at where the attention's at. So these two have the most mind share at the moment. Goose said, thoughts on Bitcoin monthly chart breaking below support? Got to load that pancake swap. Yeah, so the Bitcoin monthly chart, let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right, so yeah, so right now with Bitcoin, I would say, yeah, so we did have that support right here around that 60, call it 60.4K level. And we did close below that. And we're at right now at 58.4. So obviously that's not good. I mean, the RSI is crossing below the signal line as well. So that could play into a part with that fractal on total 3 of not starting the bull run until 2025. So that's definitely an option there. I would say, these next few months are going to play a big part. If Bitcoin can break back above, it's going to be extremely bullish. Again, that 60.4K mark is a big area of contention right now. But yeah, no, it's not good whenever Bitcoin does break below the monthly support. So, versus just looking at the daily and weekly charts, you do want to look at the monthly to just give you a big picture and zoom out. But yeah, just to combat against that, I would say we have the rate cuts, we have the election, potential stimulus, and then just being Q4 in general, being bullish for crypto. So I would say that's the silver lining. But yeah, I would say we need to get above this signal line on the RSI sooner rather than later, and then get back above this previous, support now resistance of 60.4K. So once we can get back and close above that on the monthly, then that'll be very bullish and that'll confirm that trend line reversal. So until then, yeah, I'd definitely be cautious. And I would look at more of this trend line here around that 54K level to DCA. .com Tom, let's see. Oh yeah, and Goose said also about Pancake Swap. Yeah, Pancake Swap is a good one for BNB as well. Whenever BNB pumps, Pancake Swap usually has a strong bounce as well. It's seen as a beta play to BNB. So I know that's where Luke made a lot of his money on Pancake Swap. So it's a great coin. Definitely could have a good bounce there. .com Tom says, which 3 to 4 AI DPIN mid caps do you have the most conviction? Where did you do the most due diligence and talked to the team? So yeah, in my opinion, for AI DPIN mid caps, obviously the large caps, you're going to have Tau, Render, Fetch, and a few others. Even Akash Network, that was a big hyped DPIN coin in the past. As far as mid caps, let me go ahead and look at the AI coin category, and I'll give you a good answer there. All right, so mid caps being around, call it between 500 mil to 1 bill. I would say potentially Singularity Net. So Ajax had a lot of hype. I know that they basically combined with Fetch and Ocean whenever they had their big ASI merger. But yeah, I would still say Ajax isn't a bad one. And then besides that, I know Crypto King, he's real bullish on based AI. So that may be one to watch. And then Spec. Yeah, so Spec gained a lot of hype. It's an AI coin on the base network. So the base chain, we saw Spec actually have a nice little run from August 16th up to August 24th. So it pumped nearly, over 50%. So I'd keep an eye on Spec as well. If the base chain starts gaining a lot of hype again, Spec may do well being kind of the main AI coin on that chain. So yeah, keep an eye on Spec. That's a good one to watch. And then besides that, Spec, Ajax, maybe based AI, and yeah, that's probably the main ones. Probably a few others, but as far as mid caps, those are probably the ones. And then obviously Render, Tau, FET, those are probably my main 3 AI plays for large caps. See, OXN says check out VistaDog, one of the first meme coins on Ether Vista. A lot of hype. Yeah, so I actually heard about Vista earlier today. People were making comparisons that it was like the pump.fun of Ethereum. Let's see, that's not it. Okay. So yeah, the chart looks pretty interesting. Huh. So obviously there's a lot of hype with this today. It went from $150 to $26. Now, I will say I did look at this on CoinGecko. Also know DeFi Llama made a post about it earlier today. So there is a thing posted on CoinGecko that says, according to Go Plus, is an unverified contract. The contract owner can make code changes to the token contract, including but not limited to disabling sells, changing fees, minting, transferring tokens, etc. Exercise caution. So yeah, I would just exercise caution about that. Again, I haven't researched the contract thoroughly or done a lot of research on this coin, but just keep that in mind with that warning on CoinGecko. I will say, I mean, there's really not much to go off the chart here. It's basically up only right now. So yeah, if you're looking to buy, I would definitely wait for a retracement. I mean, until 1450. And obviously if it gets back down to $2 here. But yeah, there was a post. Let me actually go to that post real quick by DeFi Llama. So they did talk about Ether Vista. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So DeFi Llama posted 3 hours ago, now tracking Ether Vista on Ethereum. Ether Vista is a DeFi platform on Ethereum, introducing the Vista token, aiming to set new standard for decentralized exchanges by enhancing security, charging custom ETH fees, and offering advanced DeFi features for long-term stability. So the fact that DeFi Llama tweeted it, that's technically good. It means it's quote unquote okay and safe. So yeah, but I'll just keep in mind that warning on CoinGecko. But yeah, if you're looking to buy Vista, I mean, it's gone up so much. So again, I would wait at least until 1450. I'm sure the RSI is yeah, RSI is extremely overbought. We have bearish divergence, so it's going to come down eventually. Um, yeah, I'd probably say 1450 and 1240, maybe some good support levels. But yeah, besides that, I wouldn't want to buy this huge candle right now. Medeiros says, what are some good BSC meme coins you'd recommend? Yeah, so the previous one I mentioned was Four and Simon Cat. And then OXN says, still bullish on Genon. So yeah, Genon's an interesting one. So when we talked about that one, there was a lot of hype with Nero, and Nero basically being, you call it Doge's brother. But I think the Nero dog actually he may have died. I need to look at a Twitter post about that. But yeah, Genon was actually also, you could call it I think Nero's brother as well. But since then, it hasn't been doing that well at all. So whether the team basically abandoned the project or a lot of insiders have been selling, it lost major support near this 22 to 28 level. So I would be cautious with Genon right now. I mean, the last line of defense we have is this 1.5 level, which more or less we're at right now. So if Genon breaks below this on the daily, then I would be completely out of it. But yeah, I mean, the daily still has room to the downside before it even gets oversold. Looking at the 4-hour charts, 4-hour chart is oversold right now. So that's some type of silver lining. There's a bullish divergence forming. But yeah, it doesn't look the strongest unless there's resurgence of cat meme hype or, some more hype with Nero or some type, with that sort. I would say stay out of Genon for now, unless you want to take this trade here at 1.5, potentially for a bottom play. Besides that, I would say just, yeah, be cautious. No problem, Maxi. Patrick says, I've been holding so many coins since around March, obviously down 70 and 90% on some. Would just holding till Q1, Q2 next year make the most sense, or should we sell sometime around the elections? So yeah, the whole thing with altcoins being down 70, 90%. So the whole thing with memes pumping isn't something we've seen as far as them basically being the main show in town for the past 5 months. Usually memes are the last things to pump in a cycle before we top. And the fact that they've basically pumped at the beginning and alts have bled have introduced a new dynamic, basically, where potentially we could see alts, like fundamental plays, start to take over during Q4 versus meme coins. So kind of a switch there. So as far as, holding your altcoins, I would say it makes sense to hold until Q1, Q2 of next year. I would not capitulate your strong fundamental plays that you have right now, especially right now. I mean, they're down 70, 90%. I would say, in my opinion, they're going to bounce. Most likely next year. Now, yes, they could pump a little bit during Q4, but a lot of people are expecting Q4 to be bullish. So obviously the market makers, want to mess with that as much as possible. So we could see some short-term pumps mid-October and then maybe towards the end of December. But just keep that in mind. There's going to be a lot of manipulation for Q4, especially around the elections. So yeah, I would say expect more so a 2025 run for those. Reese says, price targets downside this month. You think meme liquidity will push over to alts? If so, what niche of alts, in your opinion, of course, looks like the honeypot? Yeah, so as far as price targets for the downside, so for Bitcoin, what I was looking at was that right now we're on that 58K level, needing to hold that. If we don't hold that, then I was saying this 54K level, which does coincide with this long-term trend line that we've had. So if you zoom out here on Bitcoin, you can see this trend line is actually held since March of 2020. And in my opinion, as long as this holds on the weekly, then the trend is still higher. So yeah, for Bitcoin, the lowest I would be looking at would be 44K. So 44K, again, it coincides with the level that BlackRock bought Bitcoin for its clients. A lot of people are watching this. So if we do get anywhere near this, I would say it would get front run. But in my opinion, 54K is probably the lowest. It coincides with the 50 EMA on the weekly. Below that, again, there's a lot of limit orders near 50 to 52K. So expecting this strong support to hold, unless there's some big black swan events, then I could see us going to that 44K level. And then as far as meme liquidity pushing over to alts, and then what niche of alts. So yeah, so as far as narratives are concerned, I'm still expecting AI to have a second boom, especially if GPT-5 releases this year. So expecting that to be a catalyst of it. And then obviously if NVIDIA, for their earnings at the end of the year, expecting that to create some hype as well. So I'd say AI is one narrative. And then RWA is another one. So real world assets. I still expect BlackRock, Larry Fink to talk about RWA sometime this year. And we'll have coins like Ondo, maybe Pendle, and then a few other RWA plays that could catch a bid as well. So RWA and AI, still looking for that. And then obviously GameFi. So Hustlepedia has talked about it. Super, Beam, and a couple other GameFi plays. Even AVAX could catch a bid as well. So yeah, so potentially GameFi, AI, RWA. That'd probably be my choices. And I do think we will see again a rotation to fundamental plays and those narratives. But in my opinion, strong memes will still continue to outperform, right? So you have like your Pepe, your Brett, and a few others. Maxi says, you talked about using CZ News as a BNB long opportunity. Where would you exit the trade? I think about 610. Yeah, so that 600 level, I believe that was big resistance last time. Let me see. Yeah, so we just got to around 600 on that last pump that we had whenever he was released to his halfway house. So at the very least, I would expect some resistance near 600, and it's a round number, so it's a psychological level. From there, I would look to exit around 680. So that was the last big resistance on the weekly. So yeah, around 600 and 680. Those two levels I'd look to DCA out at. Kai says, what do you think about holding meme coins like Brett or top tier memes? You think they'd be able to retain their narrative when Q1, Q2 comes? Yeah. So there's a guy called, his name is Crash on Twitter. Right now, I think his position's worth around 6 to 7 million on Brett. He's been very vocal about Brett. And obviously, Luke was bullish on Brett as well. I do think that Brett could still be an outperformer, similar to how Pepe was, multi-billions. I think that we'll see those strong plays. I don't know if it's going to have its run in Q4 or if it's going to wait until Q1, Q2 of next year. But I do think that strong memes are still going to have a place because you always see a rotation, even if fundamental plays do pump, right? You do see a rotation out of those into meme coins eventually. So I would still say the top memes would still outperform or at least do well in tandem with altcoins in those fundamental plays. I would just be wary of the low cap meme coins. But yeah, eventually there's going to be a rotation back to memes. We're going to see that craze again. In my opinion, we'll see a little bit of it in Q4, but we'll see probably the main part of it probably in Q1, Q2 of 2025 when the real alt season kicks off. And Maxi said, thanks. We'll look into it. And then Kai says, thanks. Yep, I've been following Crash for a while. Good. Yeah. Brett's one of those coins that has a huge cult following, so I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. I just keep an eye on it. I'll do a real quick chart of it just because we're talking about it, and then we'll go ahead and end the stream after that. So right now Brett's at about 750. So looking at the daily charts, what I would say is it has bounced nicely from this wick that it had August 5th. So the support at about 7.2 cents. It has held so far. If we do end up falling below the 7.2 cent mark, the next level I'd look at for Brett would be 5.4. So looking at the RSI, it did have a nice little bullish divergence. So we can see the RSI made higher lows while price made a lower low. So hopefully we can see Brett bounce a lot higher here. Next big resistance, I would be looking at probably call it about 10 cents. 10 cents is going to be your next major resistance on Brett. And then after that, I would be looking at, call it 15 cents. So so about 7.5, 10 cents, 15, and then it's all-time high near that 18-cent mark. So now may not be a bad time to pick up some Brett. Again, it's at major supports. Below that, I'd be looking to DCA at about 5.4 cents. So with that, guys, appreciate you watching. Again, good stream today. Went over a lot. Again, for these upcoming events, Make sure you guys are signing up for the DGen meetup if you haven't. It's going to be an awesome event in Singapore, September 20th, along with Token 2049. Looking forward to seeing you guys there. And until next time.